The book has now only 5 games left by Palatnik. I just wanted to see his games, honestly, because I just checked also in internet. So he was born in 1950 in Ukraine, Odessa. So this is a Soviet grandmaster that has lived a good part of his life probably in Soviet Union, and then immigrated to America. The last 5 games will just show us more of the themes that Palatnik cares to convey us as a teacher. I think we are lucky to have books like this one, especially because it was so cheap. I think I paid $5, so I mean $5 for the experience of a grandmaster of the Soviet era is not a joke, right? I mean, generally a grandmaster would ask $100 per hour. Here, I have watched all these games for free practically. So, this game was Sumtsak versus Palatnik in Rimavska Sobota, 1977. And it starts with knight f3, c5, white avoid the Sicilian, and he goes for an English, symmetrical English at the moment. Then we will see what happens, okay? Knight f6, knight c3. Black wants to open the position with d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, g3, knight c6, bishop g2, e6, castle, bishop e7, knight takes e, d5, e takes d5. And now there is the move that creates the isolated queen pawn, d4, also if it's not right away. Castle, bishop e3, aha, but it doesn't create the isolated queen pawn. So let's see what happens here. c4, knight e5, bishop f5, and queen a4. And here Palatnik writes, we now see a position on the board from an improved Tarrasch defense. Okay, this is a historical name, one of the wisest chess teachers of the past. Dr. Tarrasch calls upon us to continue to improve our position until we reach checkmate. Only at that point one can rest. White's last move was made with typical opening speed, meaning it was made expeditiously on autopilot. It's as if everything is already self-evident, as if there were no other moves which should have been considered. The downside of the last move is that it allows black pawns to be free of their leash. So let's see what happens, okay? And like always, it doesn't tell us what white should have played at this point, right? Knight takes e5, d takes e5, d4, bishop f4. This is false, since if he played rook a d1, bishop d7 will lose obviously this piece, right? Because you have to move this, and so it takes. Okay, let's see what happens then. So bishop f4, c3, b takes c3, this takes c3. Okay, so this is not an isolated queen pawn, but it's isolated because it's kind of too far from black's majority. Clearly black has a queenside pawn majority, but it's really strong. On the same time, black having these two bishop maybe can support it. Then there is the problem of this and this. So again, kind of very interesting. Let's see what happens. Bishop takes b7, rook b8, because this is not pushed at the moment, rook f d1, queen c7, bishop d5, and rook b4. So queen a6, c2, because you see white is not controlling the isolated pawn square in front, the one in front, and so obviously while is controlling this one. But let's see what happens. Okay, rook d c1, and now there is a diagram. However, when white took on b7, maybe it was better to play rook ac1 and immediately contrast the c pawn that is advancing. At this point, there is also a quote in the book which says, "Pass pawn should be kept under strict supervision." Nintsovich wrote this book, My System, and another book, Chess Praxis, in which he showed and made some kind of slogan about how criminal is the pass pawn, that it must be kept under supervision. Okay, let's move on. So he played rook dc1. What do you think black played at this point? Because at this point maybe you cannot have any kind of improvement on this side, so you clearly need to look for improvement somewhere else. So I hope you paused the video, gave a little thought. Maybe it's difficult to find the next move, but he played g5, and here it says, hopefully you have already noticed that black has improved his position and opened up space for his king. Bishop e3, queen takes e5, bishop b3, attacking this, rook c8, defending. Queen takes a7, now also white has a pass pawn, but it's quite behind, and rook e4. a4, obviously the pass pawn, you need to push it, especially in the endgame. You try to push your pawns as fast as possible. Rook c3. And here obviously there is a penetration of the rook in enemy territory, right? Queen a8, king g7, and bishop d5, attacking it. Obviously at this point I think it becomes quite logical what you will play. I mean, I can tell you to pause the video, but it's kind of logical, right? Where do you go with that rook? Can you really go somewhere where it makes sense? Or you attack at this point? Clearly this is the move, right? It's not that you need a genius. Who cares if a rook is more valuable than the bishop? Not in this case, right? Because after this, boom, you enter in enemy territory. It's a mess. Here it's a mess, right? King h1, rook a3, this is still kept by the bishop, queen c6, rook takes a1, rook takes a1, and now obviously you have a move that finish the game and win in a sense. Can you find it? Right? The move is bishop c5, because you see bishop c5 has the following problem: is threatening a checkmate once you remove this, right? But to remove that is quite easy because you're going to play this, so the game is over. The game is practically over. Okay. Especially once you remove this, you have two bishop. It's a mess for white. So I hope you enjoyed this other game, and I will go to the next game played by Palatnik, always as black, in 1975. But this game is a little more long, more than 50 moves, so I'm going to sleep for tonight. Consider to find this book. I think I paid $5 and read it because it's a great read. Clearly, Grandmaster Palatnik is a great player that is able to teach us a lot about the isolated queen pawn, and I think it's a must if you want to improve to know the pawn structures. In this case, we have a book that is practically thematic about the isolated pawn and the isolated queen pawn. So it's nice to read it fast, also like I'm doing, because it will give you something when you will see other games, you will know what's gonna happen, or two, in your own games, you know what you are looking for in order to win, right? You are looking for pushing the pawn up to the 7th rank or 2nd rank, because that will block the enemy pieces behind, will restrict their movements, and then you will improve your position a little up to the moment you can launch the final attack. So I hope you enjoyed this game, and we are nearly in the end of the book.